Health Minister Dr Aaron Motsoaledi is set to withdraw the gazetted regulations prohibiting the sale, importation and manufacturing of food products containing cannabis as well as hemp. This comes after a meeting between Motsoaledi and President Cyril Ramaphosa. The Presidency says President Ramaphosa wants more stakeholder consultation as well as public participation on the formulation of the new regulations. The regulations are intended to limit health risks and negative impact of foodstuffs containing cannabis and hemp, particularly on minors.
The President has affirmed his support for more stakeholder consultation and public participation on the formulation of new regulations that will limit health risk and the negative impact of foodstuffs containing cannabis and hemp, particularly on minors. In briefing the President, the Minister of Health, Dr Aaron Motsoaledi, expressed concern about unregulated imported foodstuffs that are flooding the South African market containing hemp and cannabis.
All right, we'll stay with this and speak to Myrtle Clarke, who is the Fields of Green for All Managing Director. Good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. Firstly, your reaction to the latest developments that the Minister is set to withdraw these regulations.
Hello, and very nice to speak to you and to your viewers. Yes, we are very pleased that the Minister decided to take the logical step and withdraw these regulations, because firstly, there was no public consultation, and also they contain suppositions and ideas that are not necessarily evidence-based, and it really came out of the blue and we didn't expect it.
And for you, which are these suppositions?
The suppositions are that cannabis is an inherently dangerous plant. Now, we've never said that cannabis is harmless, and we have always advocated for legal regulations where the harms that are there can be mitigated with the regulations. But we don't have any regulations to go with the Cannabis for Private Purposes Act yet. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, comes this little bit of regulation about food. And on top of that, the fact that they included hemp food products, which is the non-psychoactive, non-narcotic type of cannabis plant. We've had these foods in South Africa for 20 years, and they certainly do comply with our foodstuffs regulations and laws. So how come they included non-psychoactive cannabis in this? I have no idea.
And how do you contend with what the statement was saying there, that the regulations are intended to limit the health risks as well as negative impact of foodstuffs containing cannabis and hemp, as you've alluded to, particularly on minors?
Well, let's stick to the cannabis that contains THC, which is psychoactive, because the hemp act is just irrational, and it's been drawn back, so we don't need to speak about that. But THC is a psychoactive component of cannabis, and one needs to have, if it's in foodstuffs, it needs to, first of all, be sold only to adults. It needs to be labeled with the dosage. It needs to be labeled with the ingredients. And this is what we are looking for. But we've been waiting since May last year for some regulations for all of cannabis products, which all need regulating. So the reason why they've singled out the foodstuffs out of all of the cannabis products, we can only suppose that it's because of the stories in the media about children and dagga cookies. But surely if we have proper regulations, children shouldn't be able to get hold of dagga cookies. And also, cannabis is far less harmful than alcohol, and lots of children have access to alcohol, and not all kids go and get drunk off their parents' bar. No. So it's all just a little bit irrational. And we're very pleased that the Minister has rolled this back.
And when you look at this process of public consultation now, how is it going to help, particularly with that very concern? Because you do have, for example, some parents who are saying that, some of their children do get their hands on dagga cookies. And for them, that's not something that they want their children to be able to get their hands on. They talk about, of course, alcohol as well, but we're limited to the cookies for this, for the purpose of this conversation. So how does then the process of consultation begin to address this very serious issue that some of the parents do speak to us about from time to time?
Yes, and I do understand the parents' concern. It is not, I'm not downplaying it at all. But cannabis in its edible form and in its psychoactive form, when those two things are combined, is incredibly good for your health if you are not a smoker. Now, in South Africa, we certainly don't want to promote smoking. So it is an alternative to smoking that should be allowed in a controlled manner. And the fact that the parents and the children need to be educated is also very important, but the fact that the government needs to be educated is also very important. So that's why we're looking forward to these public consultations, because then we can bring forward our experts and we can bring forward our proposals for how we would like these things to be regulated. That will be in the public domain, and then all the parents can also weigh in on the risks to their children. It doesn't help to just outright ban something and then lock me up in a cage, have the police come and raid my home and put me in jail because the government can't regulate it properly. You know, one has to look at the extreme of things. Extreme is that a child will ingest cannabis and it will have a psychoactive effect, and that will be unpleasant for the child. It will not kill that child, and it will not seriously harm that child. On the other side, me being banned as an adult from consuming a cannabis edible and putting me in jail for that is irrational.
And let's speak about for the industry, right? If these regulations had gone ahead, what would have been the impact at a practical level, particularly for, manufacturers, for example?
Well, it would have been devastating for a lot of people in South Africa also who are already producing these products. And it's very interesting that these products are also being developed with the help of institutions like the CSIR and the DTIC. You know, there's a lot of interest being shown in cannabis edibles as a small business proposition. But unfortunately, as it stands, these cannabis edibles have always been illegal. This ban now, in the last 2 weeks, hasn't made them illegal. The trade in cannabis has always been illegal. And the trade in cannabis edibles has always been illegal. This has just highlighted it, and that's why we are looking forward to some sort of regulation for the commercialization of cannabis. So those people who are making and selling edibles now, they're breaking the law. They were also breaking the law 3 weeks ago. That's why this issue is so complicated.
Myrtle, it really does sound complicated, and as you say, the public hearing certainly will get to be able to clarify a lot of what needs to happen here, but also we now wait to see, of course, the ministry, what then do they, of course, communicate now as the road ahead. But thank you so much for your time. That's Myrtle Clarke there, Fields of Green for All Managing Director.